I'm going to be very candid with you. We are living in a computer-programmed reality.
Welcome, everyone, to Simulation Nation, your portal to all things virtual. I'm your host, Graham Tallman, and I'm here to keep you informed about all that's happening in virtual reality. We record our episodes live in AltSpace every week, and you can join us from your PC or VR headset. Just log into AltSpace, join our Simulation Nation channel, and teleport in to offer your opinion, question, or whatever else. The multiverse today is colliding. Yes, we are having a joint podcast interview that is between Simulation Nation and VR Verdict. We, me, in other words, and me and Hero over here are Simulation Nation. We interview VR professionals, world builders in AltSpace, reviewers of games, and we review movies about VR as well. And these guys are VR Verdict, interviewers of game devs about how they do what they do. So together, we will meet at the nexus point of parallel podcast universes and interview each other simultaneously. Who knows what could happen? Join us for this all-out podcast explosion. Let's see what happens. Guys, welcome. Let's give it up, guys. Give them a warm AltSpace welcome here. So I'm very happy that this is your first AltSpace experience, guys. How do you feel in AltSpace so far?
Pretty cool. I dig it.
It's pretty neat.
Nice.
I like the Lego vibes.
It's got a low poly Lego vibe going on. Absolutely. I guess they've still designed it so it can work on mobile. So that's why they keep the poly really low, so it's like very light. Which I learned the hard way because I tried to build a better world in Unity and I tried to upload it and it was like 10 times bigger than was allowed in AltSpace, so it did not work very well. But that's coming, guys. That's coming. I'm working up to putting the bigger poly world together. But for now, this is what we got.
It works. I like it.
Yeah. So we got Vegemite here. We got Brandon. I'm sure they're VR Verdict listeners. So I think this is kind of crazy because we were talking before the show, and we both kind of started our podcasts about VR at around the same time. I'm technically on episode 39 and you guys are on episode 50. So here we are. We met, I don't know how, I guess because we sort of found each other on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I found each
I
other
was
on
just
Twitter.
looking for guests. I'm saying, hey, who wants to join us on the podcast? And got a lot of messages, and you were one of them, and here we are.
Nice.
We've had a lot of guests lately, so glad you got in.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I love that we've all just only met digitally. We've never met in real life. You guys may be AI. I don't know. Maybe you're like, so you're not even real humans. You seem to have an interesting backstory. I know you're in North Carolina, you're in Wisconsin, but maybe not. Maybe you're just living in cyberspace trolling me, trolling all humans.
That's where my server is based. Yeah, in Wisconsin.
Exactly. So
I want to be one of those servers, floating servers on drones, like up in the sky. Like Pirate Bay was going to do.
Nice.
Is that what they were going to do?
If I had to choose. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. It's kind of like how Bitcoin has that satellite. It is like orbiting Earth that you can beam your Bitcoin to and from. Kind of like that, I guess. Maybe you guys are Satoshi Nakamoto. Maybe that's what's happening. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I wouldn't know if I did.
Right. So let me see. Someone here already has a question for you. Before we even start, Vegemite has something to say. You want to try what you got to say, Vegemite?
Actually, I was meaning to clap earlier. So.
Okay, cool. Well, anytime you got something to say, we even accept troll. You can troll us if you want. It's okay. We're adults. Let us know. So we're gonna try to do this like dual interview where you guys are gonna interview me and I'm gonna try to interview you, and we're gonna see how it goes. Our minds might explode, the universe might explode, but yeah, that'll be
like
good.
A vocal
good copy.
version of dueling banjos.
Exactly. What's up, Game Boy 0086? All right, so then let's just kick it off with the origin story. So I guess why don't we start with you guys, and then you can, I guess, bounce it back to me. how did you get started in VR, and how did you come up with this idea of doing a VR podcast?
That is pretty neat.
So with VR, just we visited a little like touristy spot in our state, and they had a little VR arcade room where you could rent a headset for a couple hours and play different games and whatnot. And I put it on. Within 10 minutes, I'm like, I got to get this. And Wookie came up to visit a couple months later with another friend of mine, and we kind of went and did the same thing. And it was this exact same scenario. We were all in the headset playing Elven Assassin for 10 minutes, and we're all like, yeah, we're all buying this. So that was pretty much how that started.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's a
how
good
long ago
time.
was that?
That was like
What's
summer
that?
2017, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
summer 2017 is when that was, and it was funny because we sat there looking at the catalog of the available games, and we were like, well, we're only going to pay for an hour-ish because we had other stuff to do. Like, so let's do 15 minutes of this one and 15 minutes of that one, and we didn't leave the Elven Assassin game. It was kind of a hoot.
Nice.
So
And does that thing still
we
exist now with the pandemic and everything, or is it out of business? Because I think that's a really
Uh,
tough business to be in right now.
Yeah, I'm
obviously.
sure that's not up and running at the moment. That's like 2 hours away from me, so I don't quite know.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
assuming
whole
they're on hold.
that's a whole tourist attraction town. It's called Wisconsin Dells, and there's just stuff like that all over the place. I hope they're doing okay, but I'm not really confident in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I feel like putting
Pandemic.
on somebody else's headset that they had just sweat in and coughed in,
Yeah.
maybe,
Right.
and then it's going to be a real challenge. And we also, I had on a guest, this guy Charlie Fink, who is sort of a columnist for Forbes, and he was saying that he had tried a business model like that in the 90s. And the problem was that if you have a theater, you can seat 300 people for 2 hours. They leave, you seat another 300 people. With a VR arcade, you can only do like 15 at a time and then another 15. So you can never really scale it up. So he's saying that all those businesses are doomed. And it's like the pandemic is only accelerating that, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's a great way to get people to try VR, but
Yeah, exactly. It's a good, like, it would have to be, like Oculus sponsoring those to get people into the headsets. Because, like you say, you're sweating in your headset and that kind of stuff. Like, I let people try mine, 2 people, that's it. And it was before the pandemic, of course. I had balaclavas. I ordered like nylon balaclavas so they'd wear those and not sweat on my headset. I said it was so like I don't get any of my sweat on you guys, but it was really I don't want your sweat on me. And when we were in that arcade, they're wiping their headsets down with like, whatever Sani wipes things. And I'm like, you want to, the guy's kids were helping him out. So it's kind of cute. I'm like, hey, bro, you want to hit that again with the Clorox bleach?
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
yeah,
Yeah,
we were
I
doing that
have
in the summer, and you could just playing Elven Assassin, like our arms were tired. We were just sweating like pigs, just
Yeah,
yelling and hooting.
it was hot.
Well, they do have a
Oh.
silicone.
Yeah, I got one of those sweat guards for my Oculus where you can so it's like because sometimes I do workouts actually in VR with Supernatural.
Mhm.
I'm sure I don't know if you guys have tried it or so
Yeah,
I
we've
got
had
their
them on the
sweat guard.
podcast.
What's that?
We've had the Supernatural team on the podcast.
What? No way. That's
Yeah, they're
awesome.
great.
Who did you have?
We had
Doc
Coach Doc.
and,
What's her name? The main lady. I can't think of her name.
Leanne Pedante?
Leanne Pedante, yeah. And
No
their
shit.
media guy,
she was awesome.
Johnny. Yeah, they were fun. That was
Wow.
episode 21.
How did you guys get those guys? Because I've called them. They just ignore me. They just they don't even return my emails.
I got into Supernatural early on when they launched, and like I'm still paying like the half price initial price thing.
Nice.
So I got to talking to them, and I'm a very active member in their Facebook group. So I just asked them, and they said, "Hey, sure." And so
Wow.
it worked out.
Nice. Well, that is getting ahead of myself because I am curious how you guys get such great guests, but we'll get to that, I guess, in a second. We're still so okay. So you guys, you love in VR 2017. Then where does it go from there?
So with the podcast, around that time, I was just like, I worked at a job where I can listen to anything I want as long as I want. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I was, we just got into VR, so I'm like, well, there's got to be some good VR podcasts out there. And there was one that I could find at the time. So I'm like, well, what the heck? Let's do one, because we had previously been doing one with our friends for 5 or 6 years, and that just came out of us playing online multiplayer on Xbox. We'd always just
there
be
was no
laughing
point
and
to that
having-
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no script or anything. We just sort of like showed up and had some funny discussions.
So yeah,
Got
that's
it.
how this podcast came to be. So
Got it. Crazy. Okay. And that was like in around February. So I guess if you guys haven't listened, who here has heard VR Verdict podcast? Is anyone? What about Teddy B771? No. Kurt
Teddy B.
R maybe.
Teddy B looks like he's high.
He's taking a chill break here.
What are you looking at?
What I
Teddy?
do love about your guys' intros is the music is very cool. It's like very 80s kind of retro
Yeah.
synthy style. Who designed that? How did you get that together? And how'd you decide that style?
So that's actually a real life friend of mine. You can check his links on our show notes or our webpage. His band is One Eye Wanders. And I just started collaborating with him. I said, hey, I need some intro music. Here's our podcast. I've known him since the early 90s. We hung out downtown all the time where all the fun kids used to hang out. And he's in a synth band from the 80s. So
Wow.
he just threw that stuff together, and he's got a lot of other things I haven't even used that in a matter of weeks, and it was just perfect. So it had a VR vibe to it, I thought. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was really good. Kudos to
Very
him.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, what's happening, Pan? And who else we got back there? Gets Lily Rai or something like that.
Well, right.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Well,
how'd you
wait,
get
we
going
may.
with your podcast?
Yeah. How did I get going? That's so I
muted myself.
let's see.
'Cause they started talking to me.
You- What is that?
Little
I
Rai.
muted myself.
I better put him on mute. Lil Riley's got a lot to say over there. Yeah, so I tried VR a while ago. I'd say it was maybe it's 2016 or 17, a while ago for me, but not for most people. I was like one of those people that was like, as soon as I tried, I was like, oh my God, this is the future. So I'm in the film industry, do writing and directing, and I was kind of like, oh crap, there goes the film industry. Like, I know that that's going to take a while to happen, but I just feel like at some point it's inevitable. And so I was like, well, from that point of view, I think it's important to learn about VR. But then just from a love point of view, I was just like, this is incredible and it's blowing my mind. So I just got in love with it, and I wanted to get involved in VR. I have an agent who's my literary and director agent. And I went to them and I was like, guys, I want to try VR. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's stupid. And it's like, VR is just a gimmick. Like, it's just a fad. It's going away. I'm like, well, no, it's not. But so what I ended up doing was actually writing scripts about VR. I would write like movies about VR, and no, none of them have gotten made. So I can't say that I did Johnny Mnemonic or like something like that, or Ready Player One. So I sort of expressed my love for VR in that way first. And then when the pandemic happened, I had a friend who's like a audio engineer basically. And he was like, let's do a podcast. And we were both kind of into getting into VR, and we're like, why don't we do a VR podcast? And so we kind of got together and did that. And you may be wondering, where is this fabulous co-host of mine? Well, unfortunately, it's not Vegemite. Vegemite would, maybe he could be though. Unfortunately, my counterpart got like really dizzy in VR and was having problems, and gave his VR headset to his mom. And so now he can't join me. So it kind of sucks. So I'm solo hosting the VR events in here, but he's still on our wall of fame. If you go over to our trivia wall of fame, he's over there. He's still pops by for our trivia challenges and things like that. And
Nice.
he's still a member of the Council of the Wise. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you too can be a Council of the Wise member. But other than that, he's gone. Yeah.
He's one of the blue wizards that just went off into the east.
Exactly. Maybe he'll come back someday as like the aqua wizard or the gray wizard or something like that. I don't know. But you guys are enjoying your experiences as a podcast host, and you seem to be getting some great guests. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fortunate. They're a lot of fun to talk to. I have a really good time.
It's always surprising me who says yes to us, because I mean, I'll message someone and say, hey, we like your game. I really like this, and kind of talk about it. If you want to share, come on the podcast and guest. And I think I've never gotten a no. I've had a couple not reply, but for the most part, like 80%, yeah. So
right,
kind of crazy.
Right. I think I've had one no from one of the writers of Half-Life Alyx, but I think he had a really bad experience at Valve. And so when I asked him, it kind of like spurred all these like hateful emotions, and he was just like really not.
Oof.
He was like, no. So that was it. Otherwise, you're right. I think it's like the early days of the internet where everyone's just like really friendly and nice, and like it's a small community that everyone's just kind of open to, talking about what they do and kind of sharing their experiences. So, yeah.
Yeah, the guest that really shocked me, I was talking to Resolution Games, makers of Akron and all kinds of great games. Tommy Palm replied personally and said, hey, I'll join, talk to you. And we had a really nice chat, and that shocked me. He still retweets and replies to a lot of our stuff, so it's pretty nuts. But yeah, it's just, there's some times where it's like VR seems to slow down a little bit, but there's always indie developers wanting to talk. So when we first started, it was like, how often can we really have guests? How can we plan that? And it's just, we've only, after we started having guests, we've only had a couple episodes without a guest. So it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah,
you guys have
fun. Go
ahead. Yeah.
What? I would say we've had a lot of fun with people, developing from like other countries. We had a couple of Chinese guests on that they were having technical difficulties, and it was kind of hard. So they actually wrote and recorded responses to some questions PJ sent. We had it back and forth. I read for their place on our podcast just to throw it in. It was a lot of fun, even though that's like I have no idea what I'm doing here. Reading these answers, and I think that episode still turned out right. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of different people making games, so I'm glad to see that.
Totally. And you guys have a pretty narrow niche of who you interview, right? Which I think is probably a good thing, because it's only basically like developers. Is that the main focus, right?
That's just who normally pops up and wants to talk about it.
Got it.
When I message like a company, depending on the company, say if anyone from your team, whether it's an artist, sound guy, like we'll talk to anyone, because I just love to hear the behind the scenes stories. It's always really interesting, and they always have something to say.
Like Supernatural, we got the actual coaches, not the developers or the things like that. So that was kind of a shock. That was one of the earlier ones, and sometimes we get the whole darn team if it's small enough. We'll have like 4 people or 3 people talking to us.
Yeah, we just talked to the guys from Kill the King, the game that's coming out soon. We had 3 of those guys on there in our last recording, so that'll be coming out soon. But yeah, it's always great to get a group of people on there and just hear all their different sides of their process and their story of how they make their game. And
totally. Yeah, it's amazing. Very cool. I guess we're already on to the second category. We're already out of the origin story. We're talking about the process, I suppose. So it sounds like you guys play a lot of VR. Is that fair to assume?
I do, yes.
Right.
I play some.
He has.
Not as much as PJ, but some.
Right. And maybe Joe Creator out here, and maybe Khalil Vegemite, maybe they play a lot also, I think. What do you think? Joe Creator, you play a lot of VR? Yep. So would you say that your process is you play a game, you really love it, and then you reach out to somebody on the team, or is it just kind of more chaotic?
That if I find a game I really like, that I really try to get to talk to them because I just like to hear like what inspired them to make this game that I really enjoy. Um, but there's been a lot of games where like I'll just like some games haven't even come out yet. We've talked to the developers just to kind of get the word out. But even if it looks halfway interesting, I'm just say, hey, do you want to join us and share? And we'll get the word out on your game. We'd love to have you, and it seems to work out.
Nice.
As
Nice.
far as
So are
vetting
you
guests, do you have
that
a specific way of going about it, or?
not really. I mean, Simulation Nation is pretty broad in the wit in what we tackle. We because I sort of am in the writing world and that sort of world, I bring on like writers that I happen to know who are writing a video game, or so we had like the head writer of what's that game, the Watchdog Legion, who
Nice.
just I've
Nice.
known for like 20 years. So it's like he came on, and I've got a friend who was the artistic director for the what's the one that they are making into a show now. This is like the biggest game ever. It came out last year. Um, I'll think of it. In any case, so the bottom line is some of them are my friends. Some are games I've played. I reach out to people. Some people are like cyberpunk authors who are writing about virtual reality, so we'll bring them on. Or we'll find like a really crazy old 80s movie, like Brain Dead with Christopher Walken, and I'll be like, guys, like my friends, like who wants to go like watch Brain Dead again and talk about it? And so we'll just sort of do it's very chaotic, and we sort of I think your guys' approach of having like a niche area that you're focusing on is a really good thing. We're sort of really broad, and I think part of the reason for that is that my having a podcast is sort of doing research into VR for multiple reasons, and like the ultimate goal of it is that I'm writing a book about some of the things that I'm getting inspired on in here. So this is almost like research for me in some way for the book that's coming out. And so I sort of allow it's like a bigger horizon of who we go after for interviews, and who they sort of have a wide range of interests and just sort of follow it that way. So it's sort of like VR related, but not always dealing with a specific VR project or something like that.
Sure. I caught your episode on Johnny Mnemonic. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
I was also just debating, like, I really want to rewatch that movie. It's been a long time since we've watched it.
Yeah.
Together, anyway. And then it's like, maybe I just let that one sit in my memory. I don't know if I want to watch it or not. But
I think it'll hold up.
Yeah.
It was insane back in the day. I think it'll be one of those goofy, good memory movies. So I'm willing to watch it.
Right. Yeah. Well,
You definitely need to tell your buddy that worked on Watch Dogs. Game is excellent. That's one of my favorite games that's been out in the last year on the normal screens.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I will definitely let him know.
Played all the way through that.
Oh, wow. Because that's a big sprawling world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When there's an open world game, I like Witcher 3 and stuff. I just kind of just go walk around the entire map, but just to see what it is and live in it. So the Watch Dogs one is like any excuse to go drive through the tunnel on the bottom left of the map. Like I would take the long way around and just drive through it. It was really nice. It's just good.
Co-op comes
place
out
to be.
Right.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. The Last of Us 2 was the one I was trying to think of. The Last of Us 2. That's what we had. That was one of our earlier episodes. Have you been playing that one as well?
I don't venture over into the PlayStation side. I've got a PS4 Pro and I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, but I usually just gravitate towards PC and sometimes Xbox. I just never dust off the old PlayStation. I mean to for those games, but I just haven't.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've owned pretty much every gaming system for the most part, except for PlayStations. I've just never been into them. But with PSVR and the mention of PSVR 2 coming out, that probably will change down the road. So, because there is a handful of VR games I'm dying to try that are exclusive. So,
got it. So what? That reminds me. What headset are you guys on right now? Because for those of you listening, we're actually in virtual reality. We're in a simulation nation here in alt space. We've got Vegemite in the audience here. We've got, of course, hero protagonist. We've got a few people coming in and out. Yeah, we're all in avatar form, and maybe I'll post the video on YouTube if it works out, and we'll give a post to that as well, so they can see what we look like in our avatar bodies here. What are you guys wearing?
I'm just an original Quest 1 with Oculus Link to the PC so I can record some of this. Nothing fancy.
I'm in my trusty old Oculus CV1. I have a Quest 1 and 2. I love the Rift. The Rift S is great, but the audio, isn't awesome. So this is the one I've got. It still runs perfectly. I don't want to give it up. I'm going to use it till it dies.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I'm on the Oculus Quest as well. So we're all questing out here. Well, almost.
What's Vegemite rocking?
You got, buddy.
You have to. I guess I can pull off mute because there's not too rowdy.
It's not rowdy.
Yeah, I'm on a Quest 2 running through a Shadow.
Nice. How does that work out?
Shadow PC?
It works really well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just trying to talk our nephew who has a Quest but no PC into trying that so we could figure it out. But glad to hear it works.
Yeah. It's surprising how well it works. Yeah.
Huh. God, I love Shadow
Heard it
PC.
here first.
Yeah, exactly.
Second. But Vegemite's clutch over there.
So are you guys involved in your normal daily lives in some kind of video game thing, or you just like play games and are like aficionados of the gaming world? Or do you have like computer backgrounds?
I went to a game school for animation back in the day. I don't really use that in my day to day, but I'm tinkering in like procedural generation. I haven't really released any games or anything, but I've nailed like procedural generation and mountain ranges. Like that's really cool. I look forward to see that coming out like in a lot of games. So I know a lot of like the technical things that game people go through, and that's why I like talking to the developers so much, because they'll be like, we had this problem here, and I'm like, well, what if you tried this? They're like, that's a really good idea, and I'm like, I shouldn't be so lazy, but that's the fun part for me. It's just like seeing how they overcome challenges that I've kind of like thought through, and I'm like, that's going to be kind of a bitch, and then just to see how they get through that is really kind of fun for me. I'm like, it's a good idea for later. Like you said, research for the book. I'm always like, okay. There's a challenge. There's a possible resolution. So.
Right. Crazy. That's cool.
Yeah. We've been gamers all our lives, and Wookie used to, we enjoy just like if we have a long drive together when we were around each other, which we, not so much recently, but we used to try and visit each other every couple of years. Long rides or whatever, we talk about game ideas and stuff, and he's been doing that for decades, and it's fun to watch things that he said like 20 years ago like pop up in games all of a sudden, like little pieces and parts that we've talked about. It's just kind of neat to see. But like, I've tried to like tinker in Unity, and it just nothing clicks for me. So I love testing things. Like again, like if I'm talking to developers or something, hey, if you need someone to test something or anything like that, if I got time, I'm willing to try and help you out. But yeah, I'm just a gamer at heart, just playing games. I don't have enough time in the day to play every game I want to, but
Yeah. Right.
And I'm more of the, if I'm playing a game, I'm like, I wish it'd be better if you could do it like this, or if this would work that way. And then my other half of my brain is kind of like, if you ever watch Top Gear or Grand Tour, there's the Clarkson guy, the older one of those three goofballs. He's always like, how hard could it be? That's like the other half of my brain. So when I got started tinkering in Unity, there was can't remember the name of the spaceship game coming out at the time, Black something or other, but the control scheme is really good. So I was like, I haven't used JavaScript in a while, so I tinkered with JavaScript for a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, probably a week, and then in a weekend I pretty much stole the control scheme for that whole game and made like a web downloadable game, and like flying the ship around. I'm like, this feels better than that game almost. just how I was able to, just download a 3D model of a ship because I didn't feel like doing that. Made the skybox and all this stuff. Had just round spheres for the asteroids, but flying the ship around, made little laser blasts, all that stuff. It's like, hey, this could be fun. So
I still have that game bookmarked on my browser tab, and when I'm waiting for something to, like when I'm editing, when I'm waiting for something to save, I just click that open and I'll fly around a little bit. It's crazy.
And that was made years ago. So I'm, I figure stuff out like that. Like I don't think I'd have the wherewithal to take that and make a full game out of it, even though a friend of ours that works at BioWare was like, I want to shoot these asteroids when he tried it out. And I was like, well, I wasn't really going to put damage models. He's like, I want to shoot these asteroids. I'm like, okay, I'll put in laser blasts. And then little sparks come out. And he's like, well, I'm not really, breaking the asteroids. I'm like, dude, I'm just tinkering with, some script here. I might even just port this to C#. He's like, I want to shoot the asteroids. Like, shut up, dude. I know you want to shoot the asteroids. Leave me alone. But I like to figure that stuff out. So like when it jumped into the procedural generation, stuff like that, I love to hear people talk about that and the challenges they go through. Because that's just actually probably the only thing I've tried to tinker with where I felt really dumb. So I bought like the Bible, like the course book that I think Ken Perlin wrote, and he does the Perlin noise that drives all that. I couldn't make head nor tails of that. I finally nailed it with some tutorials. I'm like, oh, something clicked. But trying to read his book, like I made it 3 chapters in, and I just had to keep rereading. Like when you're really tired trying to read something to put yourself to sleep, and you got to read the paragraph like 6 times. I was doing that with like one equation. I'm like, what the hell is this?
So I don't even know, what is procedural generation. That's your chance to beat the textbook you always wanted to be.
Well, not that I'm going to explain it as well as a textbook or even close, but you ever played in Photoshop and use like the difference clouds filter? You just it just spits out like a black and white grayscale cloud pattern. Anything like that? Or if you just took a photo of the clouds up here, but if you just had black and white, just values, you can generate that stuff randomly, right? And you can just push a button and keep generating like a different cloud. The beauty behind procedural stuff is that you can generate that on the fly without modeling anything, but it always comes back to the same spot. So you can use that black and white value to apply it to a plane. So the white values are higher up, the black values are down low. And that generates, just your mountain terrain. Then you can put like a sea level plane in there and that kind of stuff. But when you come back to the same coordinates, it's the same thing every time. So what that opens up, instead of just like a randomized terrain where you can't ever get it back, you can, without having to model all that stuff, you just say, okay, I'm going to draw a plane and then I'm going to mess with the values. But since you can return to the same component, the way the Perlin guy wrote his stuff is that it's like the values are kind of like, it's kind of hard to explain. They generate and they fall off the same way. So it's like, it's not black next to white. It's black next to like 10 to 15% of gray and then a little bit more gray. So it's more gradual.
Not slightly non-random.
Right. It's random, but again, it's
with a pattern.
Repeatable in the same thing. So when you have stuff like No Man's Sky where they have 18 quintillion planets, they're always coming back to that same planet and the stuff you made. So I hope I didn't lose any listeners with that one, but you still with us there, Vegemite? All right.
Vegemite's still here. Vegemite he's all that's I got it's right. So it's pretty that's pretty much in the DNA of the game. Like you're pretty deep in there.
Right. So like one game that came out and I had a lot of the same ideas as I did. It's like, well, the problem when you do procedural stuff is that it kind of all feels the same, even though it's like that mountain's odd, it's still kind of a similar mountain. If you put in a bunch of noise and some like other objects, you can generate terrain that looks different because there's different rocks and things like that. So theirs is really unique in this Valheim game that came out on like February 2nd. That game is only 1 gigabyte and you can generate limitless worlds. And like the No Man's Sky game, which is the biggest game technically ever because of the 18 quintillion planets or whatever, that game's not all that large either. It's just a game, but like 1 gigabyte can get you infinite number of worlds because you're not actually having to model and save and export and do all that stuff. The math creates it for you. So that's another good aspect. Because if you are an indie developer and you got to build 10 square miles of stuff, you can't really do that on a hand on your own. So yeah.
Crazy.
That has been Wookie's
Oh.
lecture on procedural generation.
Yeah, exactly. I was just reading today about, we're obviously obsessed with simulations, and I was just reading today that they are now putting into effect doing simulations on the Big Bang with our physics model in the real world in order to try to speculate as to how life came to be, basically, and how the beginning of the universe came to be. So I could imagine that what you're describing would be almost something that they would utilize, which is that if they're going to try to create the Big Bang and like all of the known universe, but they're doing it on a limited, computer, they might use some of those techniques. It's like you set your parameters with your physics, and then you just like have these models that kind of replicate sort of chaotically or non-chaotically, and then let it go.
Yep.
Crazy. I'm
And
having a
that's why I
malfunction.
just play the games.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, you need the architect and the lover of the games, both very important aspects. Without either of them, you wouldn't have anything. So
So are
Yep.
you a big gamer in your free time, or have you been in your past? Or
yeah, so I obviously I would say that my first love is film. I was a gamer when I was a kid, and I was like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, that kind of a thing. And then what I have a bit of an addictive personality. And when I got into the working world, I was like, if I want to survive, I must not have a console in my house. So I went a good long period without playing, and then I started to get back into it a couple of years ago. It's just playing, because you can now get those things where you can there's like every game and every console in all of existence is online, and you can just
yeah,
play it on your PC or whatever. So I started doing that, and I was like, it was such an interesting thing because it was almost like time travel. Like my love for Zelda, for example, was like back in the 2D days. And then all of a sudden, I got to jump ahead 15 years in time, and it was like I had never left, but it was like I was playing Ocarina of Time, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is awesome!" So it was a really interesting. It was really interesting to see the evolution of the game world and how to what it's become now, which is almost like photoreal, Unreal Engine 5 like stuff that this is like completely insane. So I took a big long hiatus. I guess I would say that VR was what got me back into gaming, because I was like, well, it seems to me like the way that VR might go is that it's going to merge the gaming world with the film world. So you're going to have these. It's the way that like The Last of Us is kind of doing it now, where you've got a really strong narrative arc. You've got these emotions that you're invested in with these characters, and they're pulling you through the story in a similar fashion that a movie would. And it's, I think, no coincidence that The Last of Us is now being made into a TV series, right, for HBO. So it's like we're now mining all of these games to give us a 2D experience that we can watch through a streaming site. So I just see that these two worlds are kind of coming together. It's like I guess you could say it's video games are coming of age, or it's like the film world is being techified, kind of. So it's not
yeah.
just like a 2D thing that you watch. It's like something that's more experiential. And so I really feel like that's where we're headed. And so for me, who's interested in narratives and stories and mediums in order to tell stories, like if I'm avoiding or not being knowledgeable about the gaming world, I'm only seeing half of what's going on. So I think that's what sort of that's the intellectual pattern of what drew me back in. And there's obviously this like geeking out and loving the games, and I was talking about Half-Life Alex, man, when I played that, I was just like, holy crap, this is like the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And now I feel like I've controlled my addictive impulses so that I can like compartmentalize my love for things and not have it take over my entire life. And so I can like play like a video game on Saturdays, and then like work the rest of the week or something like that. Hello, Caroline. I'm sorry, we're
Got
gonna
it.
have to.
Already got it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
To
I think
your
I've
point
lost.
of addictiveness. That's the great thing about VR because you can only play for so long, whether it's
That's
because
true.
you're standing or because the headset's a little heavy. There's a couple of different reasons why. So it's a good mix for you.
The
Maybe.
Quest battery runs out.
Yep.
Totally. That's like me. Like if you guys haven't noticed, I've lost my arms. My arm batteries have just ran out. So now I have no I've lost my power in my right arm. So there's a perfect example where it's like I can no longer do things. I guess I must leave and join the real world for a little while.
And that's,
Did you hear about what's that?
I was gonna say, that's the weird thing about games is because like I remember when I was going to the game school, it was a game, film, and other artistry school. There was one guy that was like from Brazil, and he said, "I don't know how you guys can play those games. I remember when I was a kid and I played Mario 3 for like 9 hours." And he was like, "I cannot do the video games. 9 hours gone." Like he would just like tell that story every time like he would see us. He's like, I can't do your games." Like, it was a huge hang up with him. He's like, "No," like it was like, "We aren't video games. You're not playing video games. Would you like to go to lunch with us? Like hang out?" And he's like, "I can't do your games." Like self-control, buddy.
Right. So okay,
And
so what is your what's that?
I was just going to throw in there that the great thing about VR to me was we got into it at a time where like normal flat gaming, like all the games are just becoming the same old, rinse, repeat. Like everything was the same. It was just getting like no creativity, no nothing, nothing else happening. And then VR was just this huge breath of fresh air with all these different like, because no one knows how to use it properly yet, 100%. So it's just people trying things and just people creating crazy worlds, and it's so immersive that it really pulled me out of a rut that I was like, I couldn't tell if I was getting old or if games were like letting me down or what it was exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm very
Right.
thankful VR came to me when it did because it pulled me right out of that funk. So
Yeah,
Well,
we'd set up like a game night. We'd set up like a game night and just like try to hang out on something. We'd sit there and be like, "I don't really feel like playing anything." We wait all week for this like 3-hour chunk on a Thursday and be like, "These all suck." So,
it's interesting because I have a very similar experience with film and TV. It's like it's like everything has the same formula. Everything. I just am like I know how these are working. I know what they're doing. Like it's just so boring, and it's almost exactly what you're saying. Where it's like a breath of fresh air. It's just like whoa, like a whole new galaxy to explore. This is awesome, and it's so fresh and so new. And it feels so much like the way that the future is going to go, and it's just so exciting. Like I have that exact same feeling, but from the film streaming thing.
so
Absolutely.
from your point of view, what are some of your favorite like experiences in VR? Like Wolves in the Walls was freaking amazing. There's been a couple like short. I don't know if you call them films or whatever, but just experiences that have been amazing in VR.
Yeah, Wolves in the Walls is the one that has been on my list to try. I also really want to try. I think it's called Spheres, the Darren Aronofsky one. Have you guys tried that yet?
Yep, that's pretty
no.
neat. Yeah.
Is it? Is it? You recommend it?
Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah.
Okay. So my very first one that I loved was Evolution of Verse by Chris Milk. Speaking of Supernatural, so he's the guy, obviously behind Supernatural. What's his studio called? Within, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it used to be called Verse, and this was the evolution of Verse. And have you tried that one?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like it's basically a 360 video. It's not even, you can't even use your controllers. It was pre-controller times or something. I don't know. He just did it, maybe not, but so that was the first one that like completely blew my mind. Half-Life Alex is like just like I feel sort of upset that I played Half-Life Alex because then everything else is now that's the bar in my mind that's set, and it's like, well, nothing. How is anyone ever going to top that? Like, it's so incredible. So that for a older lower poly game, I kind of loved so it's time what's it called? I think it's Time You Die, or like what's it
I Expect You to Die.
I expect you to die, exactly. And part two, they just announced is coming out, and I'm
Yep.
kind of stoked about that. It's kind of a really fun, light game. It's these cool little puzzles that you got to play, and it's not too hard. And it's like, oh, it's just a fun, breezy afternoon.
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah. Super hot obviously is also addictive. These are ones that we've reviewed some of these on here. But how about you guys? What are some of your favorites, and what would you recommend? What are some you recommend?
Well, he plays a ton more. You can see all those experiences you just rattle off. I played them.
Right.
Experienced them, but
I know we've had a lot of fun with Pavlov.
yeah, we've had way too much fun on Pavlov, but that's one of the early ones. Resolution Games or Tommy's Cookout, or is it? So
Cookout of Sandwich Tales.
Sandwich Tale, that's the subtext. That one's really fun because it's just unassuming and you're stacking. It's like a resource management game, but like really the ones that keep sticking out to me are Elven Assassin and Pavlov, and they're both like $15 games on Steam, which is a big part of it because it's like, you don't want to spend $30 and get a $10 experience, but like just the simple nature of, especially like Pavlov, trying to figure out how to load a gun while everyone's trying to shoot you is just classic. And it's kind of revival. We used to play a lot of we started off with Halo and then, some Call of Duty, and those got tired real quick. So it's kind of nice to see some of those games. You don't need a million of those games, but it's nice to see some of those, kind of revived in a way. And then they, on the PC, at least, you can put your own maps in there from the Steam, not the asset store, but the whatever they call it, where you can download the mods. So we were playing old GoldenEye games from the Nintendo 64, old GoldenEye maps, just hunting each other down one-on-one. So it brought back a lot of nostalgia. So that one's still gold in my book.
Nice.
Yeah, my all-time favorite VR game has been Asgard's Wrath from Sanzaru Games. It's very much, I don't want to say it's like a Skyrim in VR, because Skyrim is in VR, which is also amazing. But it's a 40+ hour game that has a lot of different elements to it, like exploration, puzzles, physical combat, which is my favorite thing in VR. It's like physical combat with like sword and board, shield and blocking and stuff. The graphics are, amazing if you have the PC to handle it. It's just, and I love what's the I can't think of the setting, but the gods involved and all the different monsters from
Like
those old
Greek
stories.
mythology.
Yeah. I'm really bad with names, so yeah, it's a really good time, and there's just so much to do in it. Some of my other favorites, like I Expect You to Die, was one of my early on favorites just because it was so interesting. I could rattle a bunch off probably, but what I normally do is like with No Man's Sky and Skyrim. Those are the games like when VR has a quiet time, which happens quite often. Those are the games I go back and just kind of pick up where I left off and go until something new comes out. So
and
there
what
is.
are you? Yeah, go ahead.
What?
I was going to say, what are you looking forward to?
Coming up, and here's what's going to kill me because I'm not going to remember the names of the game, and I'd really like to give them a shout out. But there's a Dwarven game coming out. They're coming out in flat and VR, which I think is very smart of a lot of the developers that are doing that these days. I hate myself with my brain because I don't do names very well, but I'll give them a shout out on Twitter. But yeah, Wookie and I are both big into like Dwarven Tales and all kinds of stuff like that. So to see something like that coming to VR is really exciting. So
cool.
Remember we tried, was it Deep Rock Galactic, which is like another procedural little adventure. Then you got to like dig down in, you get minerals or whatever. We were just kind of using it like a casual, hangout online experience because we live 2,000 miles away from each other.
Right.
Then like getting out, there's like giant bugs come in, and it's like just a hellish nightmare. Like the first half, the little missions you're on, it's like, oh, this is cool. We're just chilling, figuring things out, and then it's just like panic screaming. So I'm like, well, that game's kind of sour. So
Right.
I love
What-
that the dwarves are making comebacks. So.
Right. What about Vegemite? You got any recommendations? What's your favorite game?
Walkabout Mini Golf. I think that's the best game
Yeah.
on the Quest. Yeah, I don't think it's on
Huh.
Steam yet, but I think it'll be there soon.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
The
game.
Room is also really good for a puzzle game.
Yeah, I've been wanting to play that. The Room's been on my list for a while also. Nice. Okay. And so I'm curious. So have you guys, it sounds like you haven't been doing much social VR stuff like VR chat, alt space.
Nope.
Did you say that that's true?
This is
Yeah.
our first experience in
First
alt
alt
space.
space.
So.
We were in
Yeah.
VR chat once. We kind of jumped in with a friend of ours. We watched movies in a big screen, or we haven't done it in a while, but in big screen, we just get together every Saturday night and watch a movie like Ghostbusters on Halloween and stuff. Jumped into VR chat, and it's exactly what I thought, but she was scared, so we were kind of standing in the corner watching all these little kids, do their thing in VR chat, and I was like, this is a scary place.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of kids in VR
We
chat.
watched a live performance, like a play of
The Krampus.
the Krampus in VR chat.
Hmm.
That's pretty neat. Adventure Labs on our podcast, the makers of Dr. Crumb's Horrible School for Pets.
Yeah,
It's like an
they're pretty
escape
good.
room experience. We've beta
cool.
tested a few times with they're working on stuff, and they're one of the smart ones where their focus is VR, but they're working on things to allow non-VR players to play with your friends and help get out of the escape rooms, and they have different things planned. So that's another social thing that's been pretty great.
Yeah, shout out to them. Anyone who hasn't gotten to like leave the house, or just they're in quarantine or lockdown or whatever, if you need to do an escape room, look up Dr. Crumb's, what is it called? I'm bad with names too.
Horrible School for Disobedient Pets is the long.
Yeah.
Nice.
But then, just
um,
fun escape room time. Like, I don't even like escape rooms in real life because it's like, that's a dumb puzzle. You should have done that. And I'm like, shut up, brain. Stop trying to improve everything. But then just going through this, like, they've got a cute little setup there, and it's just fun to do with friends. So.
And then
Nice.
The Under Presents had what was that play? The Tempest. They had a live performance of The Tempest where you'd go in there with 5 people. The people, like the audience, couldn't talk, but you could act, and they'd like say, "Hey, do this and that." That was really neat. So those kind of social things. But we like to just hang out and stuff. We're normally just looking to play things normally when we hang out. So yeah, we haven't gotten into all that.
Sounds like you play multiplayer games though, so you would be like playing on a team together or whatever.
Yep.
Right. Nice. So should we talk about where we think maybe the VR is headed? It sounds like we got, you're good at predicting, Wookie, where games are going, or at least types of graphics. Do you guys have any predictions in the near term, the next 5 years? What do you think is going to happen? Also, PJ, you're talking about how there's these sort of lulls in the VR world, like there's a wave of activity and then it kind of calms down. So any predictions for the next 5 years?
What do you think, Wookie?
And you're coming too, Vegemite. We'll get your answer too.
Yeah, you're on deck.
He's part of the show. Just bring him on up.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We should take down the blocker.
So for the next 5 years, the only thing I have a real problem with VR is just the barrier to entry, which the cost is going down, but like I still have the original Rift, but the sensors and the cables and all that kind of stuff, even though I know I'm kind of going against that because I'm plugged into my PC with the Quest right now. But until they kind of nail that, because even now, like the Quest is sitting on the front of my head, kind of, weighing me down. I think they've got a long ways to go before it's just second nature for someone to come home and jump into VR or work from home telecommuting and doing VR stuff there. Just, it's not uncomfortable, but after a long while, there is a bit of discomfort. we just talked about this with another guest, but I think more of the focus is probably maybe not in 5 years, but I think it's going to be more AR because of, the Google Glass, which I think Google's still working on that kind of stuff. Not that I was a huge fan of it, but I can see it having a ton of real world use right out of the gate, which will help it be more adopted. Then plus being able to taking a Quest out, and PJ showed videos when he first got his Quest, going out in the yard and having like limitless pretty much space to roll around and do the room scale VR instead of just standing VR. But going outside with some sort of AR setup where it's not uncomfortable and you can basically play games in the real world, like the Pokemon's whatever Go kind of a themed stuff where you just like see stuff overlaid in the real world. I think that's going to make things catch on a little bit more. I think that's going to be the new gateway into VR myself. Nothing really beats VR for just like holy crap, especially when
Just like
if you've played a
nobody
ton of
here.
like Skyrim and then Skyrim, where you're like looking at the same easy frame, like times 3, or you're like zooming in on the leaves, like that looks so cool. You can't beat that, but I think AR is going to be more of the market share myself. Even though the games are kind of odd right now, because the Mario Kart AR is actually really fun, but you have to have a lot of room in your living room and no pets. You're gonna have a hard
Pets
time.
are awesome with that.
I tend to agree. It's interesting. My last guest, Charlie Fink, came on and he was talking about the Apple AR glasses, and he said it's not going to be what you think. It's not like you play games through the Apple AR. It will predict if you have nearsightedness or farsightedness. It will be able to correct in real time your eyesight. That's the AR that it's more of a health oriented AR as opposed to a gaming oriented VR and AR. And that's the first time I've ever heard that, because I was under the assumption, like you are, that it's like going to be like Pokemon Go, and then suddenly we're going to be like coming out of the house and like there's going to be aliens in the sky with our glasses. It will be like, holy crap, and then we'll play a game that way. But he put that into question, and that made me think maybe that imagination that I have of like what AR will be is even further down the road. I don't know.
It's possible something's going to cement it to get it in there. But my thing is like all the funny videos of people LARPing that we've been watching for like 20 years on YouTube now, where the guy's like throwing cardboard lightning bolts at people and going like lightning bolt, lightning bolt.
Yeah.
You could actually go out and like see yourself shooting somebody, zapping them with like force lightning from Star Wars or something, and seeing something happen to their character, and they just that's going to be accessible and fun, I think.
Yeah.
But it's easier than putting on a big rig and then trying to run around with cables. So I really want one of those. I don't even know what they're called, but like where you kind of stand in the rig and then you can run around in VR.
Yeah.
You're not really running around your room.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
But then, how do you get your nephews and cousins and stuff to buy into that? Not everybody can afford $8,000 for a PC and a headset and a rig. So
we gotta wait for the microchip in our brains. Unfortunately, we don't have to buy so much gear.
Plug it right in.
Should we let Giraffe troll us here? It looks like he wants to troll really, really bad. What's up, Giraffe?
He's fine where he is.
Giraffe, nothing to say? This was your chance. Oh, he blew it. Sorry. Could have really trolled us. Instead, you got to use finger symbols. What about we'll do PJ and then we'll do Vegemite. So get ready, Vegemite. What do you think, PJ?
My opinion is it'll be a merge of the two, of AR and VR, which is what they're trying to call XR. Is like I see AR being more like when you double tap the Quest and you bring up the cameras and you can walk around your house and see things. More of like a menu system, maybe. With you'll have little games built in and stuff like zombies coming in your windows, maybe type of thing. But I think VR still, as far as games go, VR will still kind of be where it's at for me, just because the immersion's there. Like, I'd much rather be off in some world than in my living room swatting flies or whatever it is. Depending on the game, because some of the AR games, when you like, if I could take a Micro Machine airplane and like fly it around my living room, that'd be awesome. But I think it'll be a nice mix of the two. So we'll see what happens.
It's also like a fair bit of a little bit of pessimism is like, what is the companies are going to do with this? So it would be really interesting. I was talking to my girlfriend about this, where like, what if your AR, like when you wear glasses, what if you come home and like you don't really have cool stuff on your walls? It's all AR overlay, and then you have to pay, to get the cool stuff. It's almost like the gamification of real life. But so like, here's your car, but now you can paint it red in AR, but you got to pay someone like $2,000 to do it. I think that would totally, they'd be able to feed you and collect information, everything you see, all do in real time, and then still make money off you. And it's going to be like that sounds pretty accurate, like a Facebook thing. So.
And also then you get in NFTs, right? So you got these non-fungible tokens that they'll start integrating. So you'll have like an original, like the Picasso of the digital art world on your wall, and it'll be like augmented, but it'll be worth like $1 million because it's like on the blockchain and in one of a kind or something. It's like completely wild where things will go for sure. Okay, Giraffe wants to do his best to say something now. Let's see what Giraffe has to say. What's up, Giraffe? This is your second chance. What's up?
Thumbs up. All right.
Thumbs up.
I like the color in your wardrobe, man. You got like an ensemble going on.
You can't speak, I think he's saying. But yeah, stylish outfit. He says, eat, don't eat. Eat, don't, I don't know. Okay, well anyway.
I can tell if he's throwing up or picking his nose. One of the two.
He's using Avatar sign language, which is in its infancy, as we still don't understand what he's saying. Vegemite, do you have anything to add?
Pasta is good. Pasta is good.
Any theories as to where VR is headed in the next 5 years? Yeah. Okay. Raise your hand, and we'll give you we'll answer your thought here. There we go. That's Veggie. Yeah, you're on, Vegemite.
I don't hear.
We can't seem to hear you. Can you guys hear him?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, as far as the interesting thing is like, what is going to be that? Obviously, everyone's always asking like, what's going to be the iPhone moment of VR? Is it going to be Facebook Horizons? I think that has a chance to bring in a hell of a lot of people. I mean, it's like, if you got a bunch of, kids at home on Facebook and they want to hang out with their friends, but their friends are scattered all over the place, are they going to go into Facebook Horizons? Maybe, right? Because I find actually that I spend more time in social VR than I do in VR games. I think the reason is because it's unpredictable. You don't know who you're going to meet. They're real people. You're having actual connections. We've had people on here who are like talked about there was a wedding in alt space with two people who may or may not have met in the real world, but their avatars are getting married because they're like, it's like, the idea of like a work wife or a work husband. Like this is like their virtual husband or something. And it's like there's real emotions and real connections. And so I feel like, Zuckerberg's original idea was put the experience of college online. Well, it's like now he's saying put the experience of college in virtual reality, and that might be one of the things that helps sort of spread VR a little bit quicker. I'm a little bit surprised that during the pandemic it didn't catch on more than it did. I know that they've like doubled the Oculus Quest sales from what they expected, but it still feels like I don't know many people who are hanging out in VR, even though we've been trapped in our homes for 12 months. Like that's kind of wild, right? Yeah. So then it does kind of make you think that like something like AR, which is more easily accessible, you're out in the real world, you're hanging out with your real friends in like real digital, the graphics of the universe, which are pretty high resolution, right? And then you can like augment that with some cool little Pokemon character. It certainly seems like that is going to be like a huge wave. And so then it would make you think that, yeah, AR glasses will take what's happening in your phone and put it on your eyes. and that will be like the next big leap into the digital realm. And then from there, people get more comfortable with the idea of having some of your reality not being real in the sense of like, you know, flesh and blood and you know, sticks and stones and things. And so then they're more likely to go home and immerse themselves in a VR gear. And then how long is that process going to take? That could take 10 years, right? I mean, like, let's say AR hits in
take a while.
5 years. Yeah, let's say AR hits in 5 years, and then VR is the next step past that. It could be 10 years.
Yeah. And as long
Another
as
thing about-
like when I'm 80, I can plug in and still run around and enjoy games, I'm cool. So
Right. Well, did
The
you
thing
see
about the-
Upload?
yes.
Did you see this? Yeah. that's that's where that's the 20-year plan.
Yeah.
just Neuralink or something.
Yep.
The current state of VR headsets, though, like, I don't think our eyes, you know, if you're staring at screens and stuff all day, you should every 20 minutes look at something 20 feet away or
Right.
farther for 20 seconds. And the way these things are, you know, even like the 3DS was giving people some problems with, you know, how they were developing, especially younger children when their eyes are still kind of, you know, not quite fully done forming yet. I think having the screen in your face, no matter how savvy they get it, is still, your eyes aren't having to focus as well. So I think there's a point where it's like, I want all this stuff for VR to happen. I want all this to, then sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna go read like a book.
Right. Right.
A non-Kindle paper book. So
Well, and not to mention that apparently Facebook is losing a lot of money on the Oculus, right? They're just doing it
Yeah.
to launch these new products and things, and they're sort of taking a loss. So the technology that we have even today with the Oculus Quest is more advanced than the market is ready for, because the market can't actually support this price range. So because Zuckerberg has like billions and billions of dollars, he's able to take this hit on it, but they haven't even developed the technology to be cheap enough that it's actually the price that it is for, you know, in a capital market where the free market decides. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's why there's no competitors, which competition is always a good
Right.
thing for technology. But we don't really know if they're losing money. Like, are they getting money from knowing what my room looks like, type of thing? Like, we don't know. I don't want to get into the negative stuff, but
Right.
kind of a scary thing.
They're IOI. If you watch Ready Player One, they're going to become IOI, and
Yeah.
that's scary.
yeah.
Should we let Jaroff have one more shot at it?
Bring it.
He went away.
Make me cry.
He's gone. Well, cool. Anything
Stop
else,
harassing
guys?
Vegemite.
Yeah, seriously. Vegemite's so cool. Vegemite's the coolest guy. He's just hanging out, giving his opinions, and I can actually boot Jaroff if he's giving you trouble. There's a way to do that. Let's see here. Jaroff, you better chill.
I just
How do
gave
I-
Vegemite the floor.
I
Anything
can
to
hear
contribute there,
Vegemite.
Vegemite?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Hey.
So,
Yo.
so what was your?
Oh.
Did you have any theories as to where VR will be in 5 years?
I'm kind of with you. I think it's going to be the iPhone. What would you call it? The iPhoneification of it. Like I'm not a gamer per se. But like when I tried the Quest, I like fell in love with it. So I bought like 5 of them just so I could like lend them out to friends so we could play golf together or whatnot, you know. So I think once more people have those experiences, it'll be, you know, all about social.
Totally.
That's
And so
my
where
guess, but who knows?
Where do you spend most of your time? Do you spend a lot of it in social VR or games?
More social VR than games,
Hmm.
or if they're social games like mini golf or something like that. So, but I mean, I'm not a traditional gamer, so
And that's fine.
And that's the kind
BJ
of the
will
crazy
still like you.
thing. Yeah, I like you anyway. Like, cause I'm a weird brand of introvert, but online, like, I don't have any of those issues. Not that they're issues, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm more of a gamer, to where like I can hop into a social place and just talk and hang out. Whereas like in real life,
Yeah.
I can do that in some scenarios. Some scenarios is like I'm going home. So
It's kind of funny because you guys don't know PJ. Growing up, like he's really quiet in other situations. Let's see, he gets to know someone that he's talking to, and there's wit there, and there's one-liners, and when he starts talking, you can't get him to shut up. But it's the last thing I would ever thought to like have somebody with how he usually is in real life be filling our schedule with all these cool guests and developers and stuff like that. Like for some odd reason, he just jumps into that stuff, and I think VR could really help tear down some of those walls, because even Facebook did some of that, because we had some favorite bands we used to listen to in like the 90s, and then PJ's like, oh hey, I'm talking to these people, like the actual people from those bands. I'm like, how the F are you doing that? He's like, I don't know, they just answered. And
Yeah,
I don't really even go in for social media, but like in a real life aspect, I'll just go up and just strike a conversation with people. But I don't do social media, so it's kind of like a complete inverse right there, which is really interesting.
Yeah. But I've done the same thing in real life. Like I've met a lot of my idols from music, and you know, people that that I work with that know me, as far as you know, you can know someone. I tell them like I used to be a singer in a band, or that I've hosted podcasts. They're like, what? No, like they don't believe it. So
Yeah, it's like the dichotomy of PJ,
Mhm.
and you don't. Most people don't see both sides, so kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Well, isn't that a lot of entertainers are like that? Like, putting all the weirdness aside, Michael Jackson was like a super introvert, and then he was like on stage was like on fire, and Prince, and like there are a lot of people like that, like where they have it's like that they're able to put on a persona almost and express themselves in that way. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
I've met a lot. I was gonna say I've
But
met a lot of people in alt space that are like, like I have fear of public speaking, so I came into alt space, and now they host their own event in alt space, and they've overcome their fear, and then it sort of bleeds back out into the real world, sort of
Yeah.
like almost like a therapy. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting. It's like a buffer between reality, but it's like a place where you can freely experiment. I think that's pretty cool.
And I've gotten to in March we have a couple people guesting that are like kind of do therapy type stuff, because I'm like, all right, games are awesome, but VR can do so much more with that side of things. So I'm trying to get people like that. And we got a couple people lined up, so it'll be really interesting to talk about that stuff, because
Cool.
it can break those barriers down. Like I heard one guy deathly afraid of like spiders. He's like, I'd go in VR and I'd play such a game, you know, whatever game had spiders, and little by little I got rid of it, and now I'm fine. So it's, which I have to do
Crazy.
with horror, because we've talked about on our podcast many times, where like I can watch horror movies, they don't bother me. I laugh at them, they're ridiculous. Games, same thing, all this and that. But I have a real hard time with it in VR, because it's just way too immersive, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like I just freak out a little bit. So I'm slowly like playing somewhat scary games and building that tolerance up too. So it is interesting what you can do with it.
Totally. Totally.
I'll scream like a
Cool.
little girl at anything. So
Right. So I guess we should just say like how can people get in touch with us? Like how should they get in touch with you guys?
Just add our hashtag VR Verdict on Twitter is the easiest. We have all of our links to everything there, website and whatnot.
yeah, just Google VR verdict,
anyone-
probably the only thing. Shows
Anyone
up.
like Vegemite here, or anyone listening or watching, have VR stories to tell, we will have you on and talk to you and have a good time.
Very cool.
Yeah,
How about you?
nobody has to be like a game dev or anything. If just somebody's like, I just like to play games in VR or whatever.
Yeah.
Come hang out.
Nice. Yeah, we got we're on Twitter, Simnation VR. We're on Instagram at the Simulation Nation. Where our website is thesimulationnation.com. We are on Facebook as the Simulation Nation also. If you just do Simulation Nation, sometimes it's like a sports betting site in London. So we got the Simulation Nation. That's kind of how that worked out.
I was wondering because I had to place. I'm like, I have to place a bet to talk to you. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
How do I put a
yeah,
pony on
cool.
Liverpool?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Any other thoughts, guys, before we head out of here?
No, thanks
I'd
for
like to thank Vegemite for
having
being
us.
Vegemite's the
Vegemite for
best.
being the awesome
Emoji
guy
love.
in the audience.
Emoji love for Vegemite. I'm giving him
I know how to
hearts.
do that.
I'll give some claps.
There's a
There you
little emote button.
Yep. This is for you, Vegemite. My man.
Yeah, thanks for having us in your world. We've never done this in VR. We're just always used to the audio version, so this has been interesting.
Oh,
good time.
Yeah, I'm glad we could do this. Yeah, and the multiverse didn't explode, so we survived the crossing of the universes, and we seem to be getting out on the other side. That's great. But that's cool. It's very informative. I love. I'm going to check out some of these games that you mentioned and experiences. So that's good advice. What were you saying, Wookie?
I was going to say I haven't taken my headset off, so we could be in blank white void purgatory for all I know. So I'm just going to leave this on for a bit.
Exactly, just in case. All right, so I'm gonna do the little outro here, and then I guess you guys, you may have your own little. All right. Well, thank you for teleporting into this worldcast of Simulation Nation. Whether you were with us in virtual reality or 2D, or listening to the podcast a week from now on Spotify or iTunes. And remember to subscribe to our Instagram at the Simulation Nation, Twitter at SimNationVR, Facebook and Discord, and join us next week as we talk to Art Collision's founder, Candice Boutequier. Until then, stay plugged, my friends.